F1 2024 is just around the corner, and it's predictions day. I'm filming this after FP2 that's just finished, and my most improved driver for 2024 will be Logan Sargeant. I feel like he won't be a P20 merchant anymore. He'll actually start building up some consistency, beating some drivers, and he won't finish last and about 12 years behind his teammate. He'll actually start bringing some performance, bringing some resource to Williams, and more importantly, keep his seat for 25. And he'll help Alex push that Williams team to where it should be and bring that Williams name back to where it belongs. And I'm sure he can do that with him and Alex consistently scoring points for Williams. Whether Logan can consistently score points, we'll have to wait and see. But who knows? I think he'll score points quite a few times this season. Biggest stinker for 2024, I have Lance Stroll. I don't think that's really a surprise, especially with how his 2023 season went. He was absolutely bullied by Fernando, and I think this season it'll be exactly the same, if not worse, because Aston Martin won't have as good of a car, spoiler alert, as they did last year. So yeah, I think Lance Stroll will be the biggest stinker of the season. I just don't think he'll get into Q3 more than 8 times. I don't think he'll score more than 50 points. I just don't see him doing that great. I do not see Lance Stroll doing that great. There's just not much to say. Maybe he'll pull a random P5 out of somewhere, but I don't feel like he's consistently quick enough or can consistently match Fernando, just like Sargeant last year at Williams. Drivers' Championship time, from last to first. And last, at no surprise to anyone, I have Kevin Magnussen. I don't think he's as quick as Nico. I don't think he's as good as Nico. I don't think he's as consistent as Nico. I don't think he has a good performance in him like Nico. And I think after watching FE1, where he's like 5 seconds off the top spot, I don't even think Kevin Magnussen will get a point this year. I hope for them they are sandbagging the hell out of their car, because if they go like that, I don't think Kevin's going to have any points this season. And it'd be bold to assume Nico will either. Spoiler alert. Because obviously Komatsu's just taken over instead of Gunter, and a lot of changeover will be happening in that time. And P19, I have Nico Hülkenberg. Haas may as well get in the bin for 2024. They are miles off anyone. Their tyres can't even do a full stint. They're breaking down like hell. They don't even have any good straight line speed. That's why they have 2 very good drivers to try and develop that car. And clearly something is not working. Maybe that's Gunter, maybe that's whoever. Obviously Gunter's left now. But Haas. They just don't get any funding. And what more is there to say about them than Kevin P20, Hülkenberg P19, which is a shame, because they have 2 on their day very brilliant drivers, very, very brilliant drivers, but they just can't utilise them in the car they got. Anyway, moving on to P18, I've got Logan Sargeant, my biggest improvement, and he's not necessarily biggest improvement in terms of position versus last year, but in terms of driver performances, I think Logan will get quite a few races where he was like, could have got points, maybe should have got points, but didn't, because of car issues, driving issues, whatever. But I do think he'll improve, and he will be the lowest driver to have scored points in 2024. But I still think he'll improve. I still think he'll show signs of pushing Alex closer than any of his teammates at Williams have done. Well, Justin has just put on Latifi, but I think he'll push Albon closer to Latifi. A bit like what we saw in Jeddah qualifying. If we could just see that every session of Rome, that would be good. P17 now. Zhou Guanyu, couldn't find any pictures of him. And P16, Valtteri Bottas. I think the state car will just be the Haas, but a bit better. The Stake, Sauber, Asda, MoneyGram, Barclays, Visa, BMW Formula 1 team, Kick. Just won't have the best of cars, don't have the best deliveries, won't have the best of cars. It's a shame, but because Zhou and Bottas can definitely pull a good performance out of the bag, but they just won't have the car to. They're quick at the start of 2022 because they were one of the closest teams to the weight limit. But now everyone else has stripped their weight and, caught up with them. So now they don't have an advantage and they're slow again. P15, I have Esti Besti. Because there's all that carbon on the Alpine for a reason. The car isn't great. And just like Haas, they have two very good drivers, but they just can't utilise them. Although they did put some paint back on, but I'm not buying that. I think they're going to be one of the slowest teams on the grid, maybe even the slowest for the first race. But, well, apart from Haas, because Haas are in F2 at the moment. Yeah, but I just don't think that Alpine will be great. P14, Alex Albon. The quickest of the back markers, you could say. Quite consistent in that. Not bad Williams, but he will always get the maximum out of that Williams and he'll never bring home less than the maximum. Which, if he goes to Mercedes, I hope he doesn't have a struggle replicating that, because I think he's in the best form of his career. Better than Toro, so definitely better than Red Bull. I'm sure he could string a solid, good set of results and bring Williams higher in the constructors than what Valtteri and Zhou will bring to Stake, or definitely what Kevin and Nico will bring to Haas. Moving on to P13, Yuki Tsunoda. Visa Cash Up, Racing Bulls, whatever you want to call them, team. Clearly have a quick car. According to a simulation, had a car on pace with McLaren. I don't think that'll be the case through the entire season. I think their pace is just coming from the Red Bull parts they've ordered, and I think Yuki will be more inconsistent than Daniel, but still bring home quite good results, and I think he'll get quite unlucky with scoring P11s and P12s at times, just being on the edge at points but not quite getting them. But I do think he'll beat Alex, and he'll be worst of the midfield, I'd say, is what this place is. Worst of the midfield for Yuki Tsunoda. Moving on to P12. I've got Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly is just better than Ocon, basically. That's why he's here. Okay, there's like 2 positions between them, but I think those 2 positions will be covered by 15 points, more or less. I don't think there'll be much in it. I just think Pierre will get a lot more out of the Alpine than what Esteban will, because he's better than Esteban, and he's more consistent than Esteban. He's more in the team than what he was last season. And maybe he tactically blows up Esteban's car or Esteban's race. by crashing into him for a race or two. Because, you know, Ocon Gasly things. Anyway, moving on to P12. I have Lance Stroll. Every season, Lance Stroll starts off well, gets a couple decent points finishes, and then just gets his absolute backhand showed to him by Fernando Alonso, or just any of his teammates, because Seb did it too. And I think that'll be the same again. And I don't think he'll score a point in any of the last 6 Grand Prix this season. And I don't think Aston will have as good of a car as they did last year, especially at the start of the season. But I think they'll have a better car than what they did at the end of the season last year. Lance Stroll, P12, is this? Yeah, P12. There's not really much more to say. If he fixed his qualifying, he could have better races, but he doesn't, so he has worse races. P11, I've got Daniel Ricciardo. That Visa Cash App RB car is quick, but like I said, it's only quick because I feel like they got some of Red Bull's parts from last year, although every team kind of does. So I think Daniel will pick up some consistent points, consistent top 8s at the start of the season, but as the season goes on, they'll fall down. Not as much as like an Aston Martin last year, but enough to be like they started scoring P8s and P7s and P6s, and now they're only getting P13s, P12s, P11s at the end of the season. Falling off enough just to not be that relevant in Grand Prix anymore, which is a shame. But yeah, Daniel Ricciardo for Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, P11. P10, I have Oscar Piastri. I don't think the McLaren will be as fast as what it was in 2023. And I think Oscar will show his weaknesses as a rookie from last season, that he didn't show last season, more in this season because McLaren's car will be worse. But he won't be too far off Lando. He'll be like 5th. No, I wouldn't say that many points. But he'll be just behind Lando. But enough of a gap where McLaren have a clear first and second driver. But I do think McLaren will be a solid midfield team throughout the entire season. They won't start as a back marker and work their way forward from the ground up. They'll actually have some good building blocks to work with from the start of the season. P9, I have Fernando Alonso. Ignore everything I've just said. Lance Stroll was P11, Daniel Ricciardo was P10, Oscar was P9, Fernando P8. I don't think Aston will have the car they had last season, and I think Fernando will score consistent top 10s, but he won't be having a massive long podium streak like he did last season. And he won't have the car fall off like he did last season. I think the Aston Martin they'll be quicker than McLaren at times, they'll be slower than McLaren at times, but overall I think McLaren will have the upper hand on them. Throughout the season, I just think Fernando is a lot more mature and a lot wiser than Oscar Piastri, and that's why he's finishing 8th and Oscar's finishing 9th. P7, Lando Norris. Just like with Oscar Piastri, McLaren will have a decent car, but it won't be as quick as last year. But I think Lando will realise that maybe McLaren's not for him. Maybe he needs a stronger team, like a Mercedes or a Red Bull, and he's not going to win a world championship with McLaren, just like Charles Leclerc isn't going to win one with Ferrari. And I think he'll have decent pace and McLaren will have a decent car and decent development rate through the season. I just don't think it'll be enough to challenge the top 6. And that's pretty much it for Lando. I mean, McLaren's race suit, by the way, is absolutely stunning. Yeah, I just don't think they'll have the same pace that the Ferraris, Mercedes and Red Bulls have. And moving on to P6, George Russell. I think Mercedes will be the weaker car of the top three teams. And George Russell is a great driver, can really consistently produce results and impress the team and get the maximum out of his car. But last season didn't show that. And I think it'll be a mixture of last season and 2022, where he'll beat Hamilton towards the end of the season, but at the start of the season, he just doesn't have the same pace as Hamilton. Not drastically off the pace, we're talking like maybe a quarter of a second a lap. But yeah, I've got George Russell P6, which is an improvement on last year, I'm pretty sure. But he knows that if it's Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes next season, he's number one. So he's just going to not try and cause any fireworks and play 2024 safe. Moving on to P5, I've Carlos Sainz. I think the Ferrari will be the second best car this season, but I don't think Carlos Sainz is as good as the other four drivers left. And I don't think Red Bull will be dominant, but I don't think it'll be enough for Carlos to beat any of the top four. But I think Carlos will have great pace, build up great consistency. I think he'll have like 15 races or something in the top five. Like, I think he's got great race pace, but just lacks in quali pace. And obviously, we know the Ferrari tyre degradation is insane, and there's quite a lot of street circuits that Ferrari don't do well at, and high tyre wear circuits which Ferrari won't do well at, which I think will be their demise this season, and that's why they won't have the fastest car in 2024. But I think Carlos can get a win or two. Moving on to P4, I have Lewis Hamilton. Like I said, Mercedes will have the weakest pace of the top three teams, and I think the Red Bull will be the quickest car by far, so I don't think he can really beat any. I think Leclerc will actually get a proper performance out of Ferrari, unlike Carlos. Perez could be like second in the championship or 16th, because his performances are damn if you do, damn if you don't. So who knows what will happen with Perez. But I've got Hamilton P4, just because I don't think Mercedes have done enough with their cars, with their development, to progress enough, and I think Mercedes will start focusing on 2025 after like Canada, because they'll just sack the season off. So yeah, that's why I've got in P4. P3, I have Sergio Perez. I think Leclerc will get more out of his car than what Checo will, just like we saw at the end of the 2023 season, because most likely the end of the 2023 season is what will be primed to the 2024 season. So I don't think his performances will be as bad as they were last year, but I don't think he'll be as consistent as he was in the start of 2023, the first 4 or 5 races. But I think he'll get a couple of wins, quite a few podiums, but he'll lose out to Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, who are the only 2 drivers we have left. I'm pretty sure you know who's P1. So yeah, I've gone with Sergio Perez P3, just because I don't think his performances will be good enough to match the pace of Leclerc. But I do think Leclerc versus Perez will be a finale decider. And speaking of Leclerc, I've got him P2, which means Max Verstappen is P1. Yeah, I think Red Bull will be superior to the Ferrari. Red Bull were 1.1 seconds clear on the first day of testing. But I think Leclerc will make himself more consistent than he was last year. Not get knocked out in Q1, not get knocked out in Q2. Build some solid pace. Ferrari build a solid car with solid durability. He'll get it in the top 5. He'll get it on the podium every single race he can. But I think the tyre degradation will hurt Ferrari, and that's what will be why they don't actually take the proper championship fight to Red Bull. than Max Verstappen. And I don't actually think Charles will win a race, but I think he'll get a lot more podiums to Perez and be a lot more consistent. And moving on to P1, Max Verstappen, I mean, what more is there to say? If he doesn't win 24 races, then Formula 1 might have actually had a decent year, who knows. But yeah, I think Red Bull will win every single race this season. Possibly. I genuinely think Red Bull could win every race this season if they're lucky and play that strategy right every single race. Yeah. What more is there to say on Max Verstappen? There's nothing you can say. There is nothing you can say. But yeah, I think he'll be a 4-time world champion. However, I don't think Red Bull will have the advantage over the rest of the field in 2025, especially if they're not as dominant as they were in 2023, because breaking the cost cap and getting that penalty has done absolutely nothing for them, and it's not done the crime justice. Anyway, let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, never miss another upload, and I'll see you next time.